5:21 on your Tuesday evening. Taal Volcano in the Philippines could spew lava and ash for weeks, leaving thousands in limbo after they fled their homes, fearing a massive eruption. The crater of the volcano exploded to life with towering clouds of ash and jets of red-hot lava on Sunday, forcing those living around the mountains south of Manila to flee to safety.
Many residents abandoned livestock and pets, as well as homes full of belongings after authorities sounded an alert warning that an explosive eruption could come imminently. Some 30,000 are currently in shelters. And that's why we want to talk to Associate Professor Behzad Fatahi, Geotechnical and Earthquake Engineering from the University of Technology, joining us from Sydney. Associate Professor Fatahi, this isn't the first time that Taal has erupted. It has happened more than 30 times in the last 500 years, the last major eruption in 1977. With modern technology, can we tell at all if this could last for months or whether it could have a major blow in the next couple of days?
Good evening to you and your listeners. So obviously technology has progressed a lot over the last several decades, and of course we are in better position to predict the activities of volcanoes. Technologies such as satellite technology that can measure the movements of the ground, how much the sides of the volcano inflate, as well as measuring the size of the clouds, ash clouds, can give us a much better views these days. Also, we have got advancement in sensor technology that can tell you what sort of gases are released, how toxic they are, what are the temperatures. In terms of the soft technology, the advancements in artificial intelligence and pattern recognition has helped us a lot also to develop some quite advanced models that can give us better idea about the activities of volcanoes. However, because the activity of volcanoes are quite complex in terms of what type of rocks you have in place, what's the size of magma chamber, what are the direction of the vents that you have got there, and several other things that cause some issues in terms of reliability of some of the models. So it's very difficult to say we can really 100% predict things correct, but we are quite close actually. But every sometime you will see that they are like we give a miss for some volcanoes.
Prof. Fatahi, the country's most powerful explosion in recent years was the 1991 eruption of Mount Pinatubo, about 100 kilometers northwest of Manila. It killed about 800 people. Is this anything that could rival Pinatubo?
Of course it can. So even the history of this Taal volcano shows that in somewhere around 1911 that we had a big eruption there. Around 1,400 people lost their lives and around 200 people they were injured, which are even more than the number of people killed in the Mount Pinatubo eruption. So it is quite likely because this particular area near Taal volcano is quite populated, and any small eruption event can spread quite wide and claim a lot of lives actually.
And this eruption of Taal has been putting on a stunning, sometimes terrifying display, lightning crackling through its ash cloud. What's exactly causing this phenomenon?
That's one of the interesting and obviously magnificent features that if you see by yourself, we would be quite impressed. So in physics, this is due to effect or so-called effect like called charge imbalance, that typically when you rub the particles against each other, such as for example, you grab a balloon and rub against your hair, you will create some charges or basically some positive and negative charges in different places, and assume this much of ash running basically out of the ground, basically they would be rubbing against each other, they create charges and then they collide and then create a lightning. And interestingly, so when the lightnings are quite bright, that means we have got a lot more ash coming out, and that's one of the techniques that we can understand how active volcano is, or how imminent is the eruption. For example, based on the previous research studies, some of the volcanoes during the eruption time can have 500 lightnings, and typically at the peak time they can have 5 to 6 lightnings per minute. So that will show you the eruption is quite imminent, and we're gonna have a serious issue. So although it's very nice, but scientifically it can be used also to evaluate how severe is the volcano eruption actually.
Well, we're hoping that it will subside, that the volcanic activity on Taal will subside in a few weeks. Would it then be safe to return to this area? Because we know thousands live there and tourism is a major source of income for these people.
Um, Obviously, that very much depends on how much ash and eruption basically would be eventually coming out. But typically, after eruptions in this size, you will have contamination of the land and also water sources. So, and then the cleanup activities can take months or easily weeks actually. So, and usually the cleanup activities would need a lot of water, and considering the number of people living around there, there is a high chance that for a cleanup during the cleanup activities you end up getting the water shortages and so on. And also when you want to come back, you have got this ash sitting on the road. If it's becoming wet, it will basically reduce the traction, the accidents can increase. So people should be quite careful, but it won't be cleanup won't happen in a matter of days, and it needs weeks or months actually.
Prof, Taal is one of the most active volcanoes in the Philippines. It's located on the Pacific Ring of Fire. So, how many active volcanoes are there in Southeast Asia alone?
Inside Southeast Asia, we have got about 180 active volcanoes. Obviously, majority of these volcanoes are located in Indonesia and just stretching from um, east to west. And we have got around 28 out of these 180 active volcanoes in Philippines. So don't forget, around the planet Earth, easily we have around 1,500 active volcanoes, and getting something around 180 or 200 volcanoes is in Southeast Asia is quite significant number. And usually we monitor them, but particularly, I mean, monitoring all these 1,500 active volcanoes would be quite challenging, but we do a lot of monitoring around the populated areas to make sure we have a good idea about those critical parts of the earth.
Professor, very quickly, how toxic is this volcanic ash?
Um, Indeed, the volcanic ash can be quite toxic. So the ash that you see comes out of the volcanoes, typically they are fragments of rocks, minerals, volcanic glass. In terms of chemistry, typically they have carbon dioxide, sulfates or sulfur dioxide, hydrochloric acid, hydrofluoric acid. So these ones obviously can burn your skin, can cause acid rains. Easily they can cause respiratory and eye related issues. So they are quite toxic and can easily contaminate the water resources we have.
Professor, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you very much for your time. Associate Professor Behzad Fatahi, Geotechnical and Earthquake Engineering from the University of Technology, and he was talking to us from Sydney.